My name is Tyrone Docherty. I am the largest shareholder of First Tellurium. I do not sell. My wife is one of the largest as well. So between the two of us, we own between 11 and 12% of the company. And before I start the presentation, I want to give you a little bit of background on myself because I build companies probably different than 95% of CEOs out there. I build it like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it properly, they will come, and they being large companies with big checks that don't bounce. So don't worry about the everyday trading patterns with the people that jump in and sell it for a penny or whatever, or down trade our stock. As a matter of fact, I sent a letter to the CSE 9 days ago saying, what the heck is going on with our stock? For about the last year, someone's always selling paper almost every single day, knocking it down with 1 second to go in the market. Not a minute to go, 1 second to go. So anyways, I take those things seriously because it affects my wife's health. She doesn't want to be seen losing money. So here's some forward-looking statements, so just bypass that. So as I mentioned, we're the only company on the planet doing what we're doing. We have a phenomenal situation with our Tellurium, and that's what separates us from everyone else. We're only junior with Tellurium, so when the crunch comes, people Google who's got Tellurium, it's ourselves and ourselves only. The only junior in the world doing it. We should probably call ourselves first and only Tellurium, but that would be too long in the letterhead. So what makes us different? What makes us different is the fact that if Tellurium went to zero, it would have virtually no effect on us, if you can imagine that. We're a high-grade precious metal deposit, open pitable. We had a preliminary economic assessment done in 2018 that said we had robust economics, 1.6-year payback, 42% IRR after tax, and that was based on $1,300 gold and $17 silver. So obviously robust. But what sets us apart is the fact that we have this very critical metal that Chen talked about called Tellurium, and people that need it will be searching this out, obviously. And he talked about First Solar. I guess I should go through this anyways. There's our background. I just want to let you know 4 of my advisors were with First Solar. And the other gentleman that we'll get to later on is partners with UBC on this fabulous new patented battery called the Lithium Tellurium battery, which is far superior to a lithium-ion battery. Far superior. UBC says it, not me. So you can imagine that's not even factored into the supply chain problems. So we'll just talk about the First Solar for now. There's our properties. We have 2 properties, one in British Columbia and one in Klondike in Colorado. And I forgot to mention my background. I only run 1 company at a time. I'm not smart enough to run 2 or 3 like some of these gentlemen. My previous company, I took over a company called Quinto Mining, Quinto, Quinto Mining in 1997, market cap of $4 million. I was fortunate enough to sell it 11 years later for $175 million. But we took paper in the company that acquired us called Consolidated Thompson Iron Mines. We ended up owning 20 to 21% of their company. They sold 2.5 years later for $4.9 billion. So our enterprise value was a little over $1 billion. Not a bad investment when you started at 4. I ran it for 11 years. I didn't sell. Our property in British Columbia is open in 3 directions. Our PEA was done on 450 meters of a 2.4 kilometer zone. Okay, and since then, we've extended the size of the zone from 2.4 kilometers, excuse me, to 3.5 kilometers. We added an extra 1.1 kilometer. My qualified person is a world-renowned geologist, professor at University of British Columbia named Dr. Lee Grote, who walked the property. He loves it. He also consults to the governments of Japan and the governments of India. So he's someone that should be held in high esteem. So he walked the property in October, and we extended it 1.1 kilometers, I mentioned, still open. So this year we're going to drill it. Haven't drilled it in a while. We're going to drill it in the summertime. Most of it's going to be drilled on the gold, silver, tellurium zone that you see. However, while they were up there in October, they confirmed that on the other side of the mountain, we're sitting on a copper porphyry. So we're going to put a few holes into the copper porphyry and see what happens. So I tell my shareholders that take the time to call me, in my opinion, it's my opinion, I am convinced that we are going to get bought out. Why? Because we have metals that people need. I just don't know Is it going to be a solar company that needs the tellurium for the solar panels? Is it going to be people, going to be battery companies going to need tellurium for their batteries when they find out how phenomenal this new battery is from University of British Columbia? Or is it going to be a copper company that, after we put a few holes into the copper, says, we're interested? I don't know. And when I sold my last company, we were a graphite company before graphite was sexy. And we acquired an iron ore property. And everyone says, what do you want to acquire iron ore now? The prices are down to the toilet and all that. I said, well, isn't the best time to buy something when it's cheap? I think so. So we put in 2 holes and 2 holes only. And the company got sold, ended up being worth $1 billion to us. So we put half a dozen holes in here. We'll see what happens. And if it proves, then I'm sure the copper companies will be interested. But here's the difference since my last presentation in January, which everyone seemed to like. You'll notice we have a few news releases. We bought our own drill. Because I don't want to be waiting for a drilling company to have to compete who does what, where. I want it on there. Because you have the world's greatest property, but if you can't drill it, there's no point. But the interesting thing about it, we bought it from a group in Alaska, a brand new drill, and they said to the driller that's use it, would first learn like to buy it at a cheap discount, or at a big discount. And the rationale for that was, he was been business partners with them for 16 years, never told them in their life that they should buy a stock of a junior company. He walked the property in October with Dr. Grote, with my chairman and himself, and saw the copper porphyry, and phoned them in October, said, buy stock in this company. They made an offer in a private placement. I don't take money just from anyone. What's the point? If I don't know what they're going to do for my company, I'm not giving it away. That's the benefit of having made a little bit of money on the last deal, and some of these juniors don't have it. They got to take money from whoever they want. Not at all. If someone's not going to benefit the company, there's no point doing it. So I said no to them, and they phoned in January, said they want this drill, brand new, never been used, and their one condition was they didn't want cash. They wanted shares in the company. So I don't know what that tells you. The driller told them it's phenomenal. So that's where we're at with this. So we'll drill it this summer. Then when we're finished, we'll go down and do some work on this super high-grade tellurium property in Colorado. The Klondike, which, by the way, beautiful area out there in British Columbia, as you can see. The Klondike property used to be owned by First Solar. So the logical objection is, well, if it's so darn good, why'd they drop it? I'll tell you why. Starting in 2006, they did a 3-year worldwide expedition looking for potential suppliers of tellurium. They looked at over 100 properties in North America and settled on the Klondike because those grades are so spectacular, it makes ours look minuscule. We have a high-grade property in BC, so they dropped it. Rationale is at an annual general meeting of First Solar, 2010 or 2011, a couple of investors stood up and said, we think you're a bunch of hypocrites. You claim to be a green company, but you're involved in the dirty world of mining. How do you square that circle? So make a long story short, they decided they would just buy the tellurium off the market. It cost them an extra 1 or 2 pennies per solar panel, but they can get their chest puffed out. So they sold it to their head of exploration, a geologist, who formed a company with his friends and family, bought it from them, originally approached me, I don't know, 6 years ago. Are you interested? I said, sure, obviously, with those grades. But his asking price was a little high. So I said, best of luck to you. Then he came to me 2.5 years ago and said, oh, would you be interested? I said, I thought you were going to option. He goes, well, I did my research. You were the only game in town. I said, well, I kind of know that, right? So we got that, so we'll go do work afterwards. But you'll see from this S&P Global, about 18 months ago, the president and CEO of First Solar did an interview with S&P Global saying that starting in the year 2024, First Solar themselves are going to need somewhere between 900 to 1,100 tons a year of tellurium. Now, that might not seem much, but the world market is 600 tons. And then when you factor in that China supplies 60% of that, and the Biden administration is trying to curtail imports from China, but even if they don't curtail it, First Solar themselves are going to need up to 70% extra what the world market includes. And that doesn't include this phenomenal new battery from UBC, which I'll tell you about. Again, it's UBC saying it's much better than lithium ion, not myself. So 5 basic benefits. Okay, number 1, much more powerful, 4 to 10 times more powerful. Number 2, easier to charge. Number 3, lasts twice as long. Number 4, size-wise. Let's say here's the size of a lithium ion battery. Here's the size of a lithium tellurium battery, which has all those advantages. Thumb and forefinger. So what does that do for weights in cars and all that? Obviously, it's big, right? And the fifth and final advantage, it's a solid-state battery, which means it cannot catch fire. Lithium-ion batteries can and do catch fire. So I suggest to you, if there was no other difference, except it doesn't catch fire, I think automobile companies and insurance companies were kind of interested in what they're doing, getting involved in that. And we put out a news release in March. The mayor of New York had just put in legislation about dealing with lithium-ion batteries because a delivery driver, a delivery bicycle fella delivering food, his lithium-ion battery on his bicycle exploded and it caused a 5-alarm fire. So obviously, if ours doesn't catch fire, we'll go, away we go. Just to let you know, First Solar knows who we are. This is from their presentation in 2012 in Cologne, Germany, talking about the potential suppliers of tellurium. They mentioned 4 properties in the world that they thought could be potential suppliers. One in China, one in Mexico, one in Sweden, and ourselves in Canada. And they said at the conference, we don't trust China, we don't trust Mexico. So that leaves Sweden and ourselves. And about a year, year and a half after that, the Swedish company sold all of their tellurium to somebody. I don't know whom. I'm guessing it's First Solar. I don't know. So that leaves us as the only one there. So when I say we're going to get bought out, again, my opinion, okay? And that's why I don't sell. Why would I sell now if I'm waiting for the big picture down the road? Because I feel sorry for some of these companies, not here at these shows, or some that are on the lesser companies that have to just get on their knees and beg for money. And I don't do that. People I guess a little angry with me at times when they offer me private placements. I say no thanks. If you're not going to help the company, I don't need it, right? I'll put it in myself, as Chen mentioned. Just in a private placement, I think last November we did $500,000. My wife and I put in $300 because we believe in the deal, right? So when I say I think we're going to get bought out, I really do. But I just don't know, is it going to be solar panel that needs the tellurium company, or a battery that needs this, or the copper company, or whatever? Worst case scenario, according to our PEA, that we can put it into production. The CapEx is we're going to take the mineral off the property and ship it out, mine for 6 months of the year, and it's a $28 million Canadian CapEx. So with inflation, I don't know, maybe it's 35 or 40, but it's certainly doable. And what we look at is, I look at all the red flags or potential red flags, because anyone that does their business will come and tell me how my company's overvalued and why they should do it this way. So we cover everything. We got a high grade, open pittable. Our open pittable it's 5 grams gold, not 0.5, 5 grams gold, 157 grams silver. So when I say if tellurium went to 0, it wouldn't have any effect. And then you look and say, okay, what are the other red flags? Okay, environmental. So luckily for us, and not so much for the area, the government of Canada and British Columbia absolutely destroyed this area. In the late 1950s, they put in man-made lakes. They actually reversed the direction of the Nechako River, put in a Camano power plant to power the Alcan smelter at Kitimat. So any damage that we could do as a small mining company, drop in the bucket. Metallurgy, Teck Corporation had this property in the 80s. They did the metallurgy. Everything's fine. Why did they drop the property? They're going to ask. There's always a reason. Because they couldn't get along with the NDP government. The NDP government wanted to put this property into the park next door. So Teck Corporation said, hey, it's a lovely little high-grade property, but we're not going to put up with your time. But I can tell you, I'm guessing with 100% certainty, had Teck Corporation known there was a copper porphyry 5 kilometers away, they wouldn't have dropped it. They'd have put up with it. But because we're up a mountain, at that time, it covered probably 8 feet of snow year-round with glaciers. We got it luckily in 2012. Our QP, who's sitting in the audience, did a little tour afterwards. Snow had melted, ice had melted. There's a copper sticking out of the ground. So again, it's much better to be lucky than good. And the fifth and final thing, especially in British Columbia, is First Nations. Anyone that tells you it's not a big problem, they're lying to you. They're not serious about building anything. So to that effect, my chairman of the board's name is Tony Fogarasi. I went to high school with Tony, and you know the old saying, so-and-so's the smartest guy in the room? Tony's the smartest guy in the room. Graduated gold medalist of geology at UBC, okay? Then got his law degree. Then he went to the London School of Economics a few years later and got another law degree. So his specialty for the last 35, 40 years, is natural resource law, but more importantly, if he's not the #1 First Nations lawyer in BC, he's in the top 2. So when you're moving something forward, you better make sure you got all your bases covered, right? So our relationship with the First Nation is absolutely phenomenal. And just to put a little fine point on that, I know you're all hungry and going for lunch, but you don't get an opportunity like this. You really don't. I'm just saying, you can ignore it all you want, but I'm just telling you, I know where we're going to be because we got all the stuff sorted out. We actually are a third-party partner with a company called Tiffany Jewelry Store and Apple. It's through our product with our relationship with we own 49% of a First Nations mining company. And we're involved in a project called Salmon Gold. And what we do is we work with the placer miners, in case originally it was Yukon, now we have the rest of Canada. We work with them, get their gold sold at a premium to 2 corporations in the US. We take the premium money back in and rehabilitate the stream or the river, introduce salmon and other fish, and it can never be mined again. And so the 2 companies are, I said, Tiffany and Company and Apple. So we put out a news release in August of 2019 because it took 3.5 months for Apple to do their due diligence on who we were, because they said, well, they didn't say it, but obvious. Some junior companies are run by cowboys and yahoos. They did not want to get embarrassed, so they checked who we were, what we do. So we put out a news release saying we're involved with Salmon Gold, blah, blah, blah. That's like I got a call from a couple of investors saying, Mr. Docherty, is this true, or are you just trying to use Apple's name to pump up your stock? I say, look, don't believe a word I say. Just like I say, don't believe a word I say about UBC and their lithium tellurium battery. Check it yourself. But I said, go on the Apple website right now, /Salmon Gold, and you'll see a picture of our First Nations partner, 51% owner, in their publication overlooking the Yukon River. These are the kind of people we deal with. So I'm just going to sum it up and say there is no other junior A doing what we're doing, #1. #2, we don't have any need for cash. We get it from the right people. And as you know, the governments of the United States and Canada are pushing green and critical metals. We have to introduce ourselves to the government of Canada, say, do you understand what tellurium is? Because most people don't. So my chairman, Tony, wrote a letter to the minister, and it was a Friday morning in January, and said, could we have a meeting to talk about first tellurium? Because A, it's big in solar panels, and B, you may not know it's going to be big in this new battery. So you always hope, hey, you hear something in a couple of months, it's all good. We heard in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, the response, yeah, we want to meet with you. So we were supposed to meet the following Wednesday. And then Tony, who has a bit of political background, said, you know what, we have to register as lobbyists. Because if anything's discussed financial or who bought who the sandwiches, it all has to be recorded. So you see, we had a news release about a month ago saying we now officially are lobbyists with the government of Canada. So we'll find out what happens. But you can imagine if the markets get tough, both governments want to push the green energy, and there's nothing that tellurium can't do as far as battery goes. So we're in a great spot. I haven't gone through the whole thing. I can't do it with 10 minutes. My mother said I was vaccinated with a gramophone needle, so I apologize for taking up all your time. But there's nothing, and there's so much more to the story I haven't talked about. So, you know, when someone says you got 10 minutes, you know, I can hear Chen's stomach growling already. So I'll shut up. I just want to let you know, we have our booth out there, but just remember, we're no need to take silly deals from any financiers, and that sort of puts them off. They're used to juniors saying, oh, please. No, not at all. If it's not going to help my company, what's the point? And we just finished 2.5 days of Swiss Mining Institute Zoom calls with guys around the world, and finally they figured it out. So we'll see. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch.